What a lovely crowd. George Burns. Have you heard this name? George Burns. He was a famous American comedian of the early 1900s. He said that a good talk should have a good beginning and a good ending and as little as possible between the two. I have two good reasons for keeping this short. One, I don't want to pretend that I know a lot or everything about Dr. Suresh Pande, although he flattered me by suggesting that I do. And two, because if I say too much, I might be giving away what is said in the book, where you will find much more about the author than I can give you this evening. The book title, Memoirs of a Tota Rani Boy. I had to look up the pronunciation of Tota Rani. I saw it written in Hindi, so I know I'm right. It reveals the contents of the book. It also arouses curiosity about the boy. But of course, we know it will give many facts, not just about the boy, but about the man who came from the boy. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Suresh Pande came from humble beginnings. He was born in this little place called Tota Rani in Dharamshala, which is in Himachal Pradesh. The only boy in a family of 5 sisters. I myself come from a family of 4 sisters and 4 brothers, and I know how intimidating it is for a brother to face his sisters. His dad was in the army and away from home most of the time, so it fell to young Suresh to be the man of the house for his mother and his sisters. We were both colleagues at ICRISAT. I managed the editing and publications work, so didn't have an opportunity to observe Dr. Pande in the laboratory or in the field. We shared a 30-minute car ride, about 30-minute car ride to and from work, and it was during these short periods of time that I learned what most I know about Dr. Suresh Pande, the person, more than Dr. Suresh Pande, the scientist. At ICRISAT, Suresh Pande was an enthusiastic, committed, and knowledgeable plant pathologist. I requested some of his fellow scientists to tell me about him as a scientist, and they all agreed that he was a dedicated researcher and never compromised on quality. There were even occasions when he asked his team to repeat an experiment several times till he was convinced of the result. He concentrated his skills on the resource-poor farmers of the drylands, not just in India, but also in African countries, in Nepal, Pakistan, China, Bangladesh, and Saudi Arabia. He has also worked in the USA, UK, New Zealand, and Australia. Most times he worked closely with partners in the national agricultural systems. He also mentored scientists and students, several of whom became exceptional scientists themselves. He has been recognized for his contributions to crop science and is the recipient of several national and international awards for his work. All those who know him will unanimously agree that he loves to talk, right?
Yes.
This is one of his outstanding qualities, which he does with such ease and assurance, even with strangers. regardless of their age, gender, occupation, nationality, or background. He is usually cheerful and optimistic, and his rapport with farmers was based on mutual respect. That's why he got on so well with them. One of his fellow scientists, a foreigner, you will know who I'm talking about, remembers that once a group of armed Maoist insurgents joined their farmer field school in Nepal. The scientist was very concerned and uncomfortable, but he says Suresh was sure they were there simply observing and were actually quite happy to see the community-focused work. He said Suresh's confidence was very reassuring at the time. Dr. Pande loves to travel. As mentioned earlier, he has traveled to all corners of the earth, and wherever he went, he absorbed the experience and became more knowledgeable about the place. His love of history also plays a role in his travels, where he asks questions and pursues a close knowledge of those places. He also has a great fondness for reading. He would discuss the books he read, not scientific books, books about history, cultures, habits, food, religions. If I told him that I read an interesting book, he would ask to borrow it, and thus he expanded the library that he keeps in his head. It is this trait that makes conversations with him interesting and engaging. What about him at home? Well, we all know that he is happily married to the beautiful, talented, intellectual Dr. Rekha Pande, and that they have 3 exceptional sons and 2 daughters-in-law. But it is not his family I am talking about at the moment. I want to make the point that as if working with plants and crops every day for his research was not enough, he loves gardening and keeps an impeccable garden at home, from the neatly trimmed lawn to potted plants, shrubs, and even fruit trees. I am one of the lucky ones who benefited from the mangoes grown in his home. Of course, he extends his professional knowledge in protecting his plants and their surroundings from pests. He was the one who introduced me to the use of chloropyrifos. You remember this? For the control of termites. And for this I will always be grateful. He also enhanced my education in the art of choosing vegetables and fruits from vendors. On the way home from work, we had to pass through BHL, and I think they had a Friday vegetable market. So sometimes we would stop at the market and pick up vegetables and fruits. He taught me that the dark-colored watermelons were better than the striped ones. He also introduced me to kinnus. I never knew this word before. The kinnus, which are these oranges that are always sweet. Those of you who have never heard of kinnus before, next time you see kinnus, please buy them. He has another useful skill, and I'm sure that his lovely wife, Dr. Rekha Pande, will agree that he is a good cook. Not many Indian husbands enjoy cooking, but our friend here actually takes delight in that occupation. Tarun, I hope you're paying attention. And I've heard from friends who were entertained in his home that he makes delicious dishes. I also have to mention his dress. This impressed me a lot. He was always very neatly dressed when he came to work. clean shaven. In those days, he didn't have the Santa Claus look. Clean shaven, well ironed clothes, pleasantly matching, with shoes. Always with shoes. I have never seen him wearing sandals or chappals to work. My dad, who was also a very neat dresser, taught us that the shine on a person's shoes indicated the kind of upbringing they had. What do you think of Dr. Pande? His shoes were always well polished. Besides all these admirable qualities, did you know that he is also a good singer?
No.
When we had exhausted our topics of discussions on the car rides, and as if his tongue couldn't bear to be idle, he would break out in singing songs. He would start singing. And his rendition of the song Vaishnavi Janato was truly the most melodious one I've ever heard, his version of it. I now have to talk about his writing. Of course, as a scientist, especially at an international institute like ICRISAT, you are expected to write about your research findings. Some writings are just reports of work, but the noteworthy ones are published for a wider distribution. Dr. Pande has written and published more than 500 articles, adding to the wealth of knowledge that will be passed down for generations. His book of interest today, which will be released in a short while, is the only non-scientific work he has written. But even this touches on the science of geographical information systems, commonly known as GIS, which is used extensively in our modern times. It also talks about a very trending subject, climate change, and the effects of climate change on crop production and plant pests. Since I'm now talking about the author, Memoirs of a Tota Rani Boy, I would like to respect and admire the tremendous courage, conviction, and willpower it takes to write about oneself for public reading. And only people of Dr. Pande's caliber can write 700 pages about themselves. Of course, and this is important, he was motivated to write this not so much to talk about himself, but to inspire other young persons to persevere in their dreams, no matter what obstacles they face in life. It is this purpose that makes the book valuable and worth reading. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a big hand to the newest author in our midst, Dr. Suresh Pande.